Klaus Miller stared at his computer screen in the dim light of his Stuttgart apartment. 50 years old, alone on a Friday night, scrolling through photographs of a woman who made him feel something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Her name was Michelle Rodriguez, 32 years old, from Kingston, Jamaica. Dark curly hair, warm brown eyes, a smile that seemed to reach through the screen and touch something deep inside him. They had been talking for 7 months now. Every day, sometimes multiple times. Messages at first, then voice calls, and eventually video chats. Michelle's accent was musical, her laugh infectious. She worked as a receptionist at a hotel in New Kingston, she told him. She loved reggae music, cooking traditional Jamaican dishes and spending evenings on the beach watching the sunset. She wanted to find a good man, someone stable, someone who would treat her right. Klaus had never planned to look for love online, especially not internationally. After his divorce 3 years ago, he had mostly given up on relationships. His ex-wife Petra had left him for a younger colleague, someone with more ambition, more excitement. Klaus was a quality control manager at a manufacturing company, steady, reliable, boring. At least that's what Petra had said during their last argument. His daughter Emma barely spoke to him anymore. She was 23, living in Berlin, building her own life. She had taken her mother's side in the divorce, and Klaus couldn't blame her. He hadn't fought for the marriage, hadn't fought for anything, really. He had just accepted it and moved on, or tried to. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty. Work filled his days, but the nights stretched endlessly. His colleague Tobias had suggested the dating app in March. International Romance Connect, it was called. Designed for Western men seeking partners abroad. Klaus had been skeptical, but what did he have to lose? He created a profile, used a decent photograph from his company's summer party, and wrote a simple bio. German professional, 50 years old, financially stable, seeking meaningful connection with a good woman. No games, no drama, just honesty. Michelle had messaged him within 2 days. Her opening message was thoughtful, not generic like the others. She had read his profile carefully, commented on his love of classical music, asked about his work. They started talking, and Klaus felt something shift. She listened when he talked about his day, asked follow-up questions, remembered details from previous conversations. She shared stories about her life in Jamaica, the challenges of living on a tourism-dependent island, her dreams of stability and family. Their first video call had been in April. Klaus had been nervous, worried she might not look like her photos, worried the connection wouldn't translate to real-time interaction. But when her face appeared on screen, he felt relief wash over him. She was even prettier in motion, her expressions animated, her eyes genuinely interested as they talked for over an hour. She was in her apartment. He could see a modest living room behind her, everything neat and clean. Nothing seemed fake or staged. Over the months, they grew closer. Michelle talked about her difficult childhood, growing up without a father, her mother struggling to make ends meet. She had worked hard to get her hotel job, to build a stable life. But Jamaica was expensive, opportunities limited, and she dreamed of something more. Not necessarily leaving, she said, but finding someone to build a life with, someone who valued loyalty and commitment. Klaus found himself opening up in ways he hadn't in years. He told her about his failed marriage, about the loneliness of middle age, about feeling invisible in a world that seemed to value youth and novelty over experience and stability. Michelle never judged, never made him feel inadequate. She made him feel seen, valued, important. By October, Klaus knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to meet Michelle in person, to see if what they had online could translate to real life. He had heard stories of catfishing, of scams, of people who weren't what they claimed. But Michelle video called him regularly, sent spontaneous photos, never asked for money. She seemed genuine, and Klaus had learned to trust his instincts over the years. He told Michelle his plan during a late-night call in early November. His voice was nervous but determined. He wanted to come to Jamaica, spend a week with her, see where things could go. Michelle's reaction was enthusiastic, but cautious. She wanted to meet him too, she said. But Jamaica could be overwhelming for tourists who didn't know the island. She would help him navigate everything, show him the real Kingston, not just the resort areas. They planned the trip for early December, after Klaus could arrange time off work. He would fly into Norman Manley International Airport on December 10th, stay at a hotel in New Kingston, and they would spend the week getting to know each other in person. Michelle suggested meeting at her workplace first, the hotel where she worked, somewhere public and safe for their initial encounter. Klaus agreed, appreciating her thoughtfulness. Tobias was happy for him when Klaus mentioned the trip. His other colleagues were more skeptical. Be careful, one warned. You hear stories about these international dating situations. Klaus brushed off the concerns. He wasn't naive. He had done his research, taken precautions. He had Michelle's full name, her workplace, her address. He had video called her dozens of times. This wasn't some anonymous internet stranger. This was someone he had built a real connection with over 7 months. Klaus booked his flight, a direct Lufthansa connection from Frankfurt to Kingston with a stopover. He bought new clothes, got a haircut, packed carefully. He brought a gift for Michelle, a delicate gold necklace from a jewelry store near his office. He wanted to show her he was serious, that this wasn't just a vacation fling, but the potential beginning of something real. The night before his departure, Klaus barely slept. Excitement mixed with anxiety. What if she didn't like him in person? What if the chemistry wasn't there? What if he had built this up too much in his mind? But mostly, he felt anticipation. Tomorrow he would finally meet Michelle, finally hold her hand, finally see if the future he had been imagining could become reality. December 10th arrived gray and cold in Stuttgart. Klaus took a taxi to the airport, checked in, went through security. At the gate, he sent Michelle a message. Boarding soon. Can't wait to see you. Her reply came immediately. Me too, baby. Safe travels. See you tomorrow. The flight departed on time. Klaus settled into his seat, closed his eyes, and let himself imagine the moment they would meet. The embrace, the first real kiss, the beginning of their story. He had no idea that in less than 48 hours, everything he believed would shatter, and he would find himself in a nightmare he could never have imagined. The plane touched down at Norman Manley International Airport at 2:30 in the afternoon. Klaus felt his stomach tighten as the wheels hit the runway. Kingston sprawled below them, a mix of mountains, ocean, and urban sprawl under brilliant Caribbean sunshine. He had never been to Jamaica before, never been anywhere in the Caribbean, actually. Most of his travel had been within Europe for work conferences, predictable and structured. This felt different, adventurous, even reckless for a man like him. The heat hit him the moment he stepped off the plane. Thick, humid air that immediately made his carefully chosen button-down shirt stick to his back. He followed the other passengers through the terminal, a modest building that felt worn but functional. Reggae music played softly over the speakers, and everywhere he looked, people moved with a relaxed pace that felt foreign to his German sensibility. Customs took longer than expected. The officer, a middle-aged woman with braided hair, looked at his passport carefully. Purpose of visit? Tourism, Klaus answered. Where you staying? The Courtley Hotel in New Kingston. She stamped his passport and waved him through without further questions. Klaus collected his suitcase and walked out into the arrivals area. He had arranged airport pickup through Michelle's suggestion, a licensed taxi service she assured him was safe and reliable. A man holding a sign with his name stood near the exit. Mr. Mueller? Klaus nodded. The driver, who introduced himself as Winston, was friendly and talkative. First time in Jamaica? Yes, first time. You going to love it here, man. Beautiful island, beautiful people. The drive into Kingston took 40 minutes. Winston narrated the journey, pointing out landmarks, explaining the neighborhoods they passed through. Klaus watched through the window, taking it all in. The poverty was visible, more extreme than anything he saw in Germany. Zinc-roofed shacks alongside modest concrete homes, vendors selling fruit on street corners, children playing in dusty yards. But there was also vibrancy, color, music spilling from shops, people laughing and talking on porches. New Kingston felt different when they arrived. More developed, almost cosmopolitan. Modern buildings, shopping plazas, hotels. The Courtleigh Hotel was nice, a mid-range establishment popular with business travelers. Klaus checked in, went up to his room on the 4th floor. It was clean, comfortable, air-conditioned. He stood at the window looking down at the busy street below, feeling very far from Stuttgart. His phone buzzed. A message from Michelle. "You here, baby?" "How was the flight?" Klaus typed back. "Just checked into hotel. Flight was good. When can I see you?" Her response came quickly. "Tomorrow morning at 10. Come to the Royal Palm Hotel where I work. Front desk. I finish my shift at noon and we can spend the day together." "I'm so excited." Klaus smiled. Tomorrow felt too far away, but he understood. She was working, had responsibilities. He could wait one more night after 7 months. He unpacked, showered, changed into lighter clothes. The evening stretched ahead of him. He decided to walk around the area, get a feel for the neighborhood, maybe find dinner. New Kingston at dusk was alive with activity. Music from multiple directions, the smell of jerk chicken grilling on street corners, car horns, voices. Klaus felt conspicuously foreign, his pale skin and tourist clothes marking him immediately. A few vendors approached him trying to sell crafts or offer taxi services. He politely declined, kept walking. He found a restaurant Michelle had recommended, a place called Mother's, known for authentic Jamaican food. The oxtail stew was rich and flavorful, the rice and peas perfectly seasoned. Klaus ate slowly, watching other diners, mostly locals, families sharing meals, couples talking quietly. He felt alone, but not lonely exactly, more like an observer of a world completely different from his own. After dinner, he walked back to the hotel as darkness fell. The streets felt less safe at night, the energy more unpredictable. He picked up his pace. Back in his room, Klaus tried to relax but couldn't. Tomorrow he would meet Michelle. 7 months of messages, calls, and video chats would finally become real. He looked at her photos on his phone again, the ones she had sent over the months. Her smile, her eyes, the way she looked at the camera. He tried to imagine what she would be like in person, how her hand would feel in his, how her voice would sound without the digital filter. Sleep came fitfully. Klaus woke multiple times, checked the clock, calculated how many more hours until 10 in the morning. His mind alternated between excitement and anxiety. What if the chemistry wasn't there? What if she had second thoughts? What if he had built this up too much in his imagination? Morning arrived with tropical sunshine flooding through the curtains. Klaus showered, dressed carefully, chose a light blue shirt Michelle had once complimented during a video call. He ate breakfast in the hotel restaurant, barely tasting the food. At 9:15, he was ready. Too early to leave, but too anxious to wait. He paced the room, checked his appearance in the mirror multiple times, made sure he had the necklace in his pocket. At 9:30, he couldn't wait any longer. He took a taxi to the Royal Palm Hotel, a larger, more upscale property about 10 minutes away. The lobby was elegant, marble floors, tropical plants, soft lighting. Klaus approached the front desk. He could see 3 receptionists working, 2 women and 1 person whose back was turned. He waited nervously, scanning the employees, trying to spot Michelle. One of the women noticed him. "Can I help you, sir?" Klaus cleared his throat. "I'm looking for Michelle Rodriguez. She works here." The woman's expression shifted slightly, something Klaus couldn't quite read. "Michelle?" She glanced at her colleague, then back at Klaus. "Hold on one moment, sir." She walked to the back office, spoke to someone Klaus couldn't see. His heart was pounding now. Something felt off. The other receptionist kept glancing at him, then looking away. After what felt like an eternity, the first woman returned, and with her came the person whose back had been turned. Klaus's world stopped. Standing before him was not Michelle Rodriguez, the beautiful woman he had fallen for online. Standing before him was a man, tall, slim, wearing makeup and a wig, dressed in the hotel uniform, but unmistakably male despite the feminine presentation. The resemblance to Michelle's photos was there in the bone structure, the eyes, but everything else was wrong, impossible, devastating. The person smiled nervously. Klaus. It's me. Michelle. Klaus felt the floor tilt beneath him. His vision narrowed, sounds became muffled. The person standing before him, wearing Michelle's face but in a body that was undeniably male, reached out tentatively. Klaus stepped back instinctively, nearly colliding with another guest walking through the lobby. No, Klaus said. The word came out strangled, barely audible. This isn't possible. The other hotel staff had noticed the commotion. The female receptionist who had called Michelle out looked concerned. Is everything all right? Michelle, whose real name Klaus would later learn was Marcus Wellington, glanced nervously between Klaus and his colleagues. Can we talk outside? Please. Just give me 5 minutes to explain. Klaus wanted to run, to disappear, to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. Instead, he heard himself say, 5 minutes. His voice sounded hollow, distant, like it belonged to someone else. They walked outside to a quiet area near the hotel's garden, away from the main entrance. Klaus's hands were shaking. He clenched them into fists to stop the trembling. Marcus stood a few feet away, maintaining distance, clearly aware of Klaus's shock and potential anger. I know what you're feeling right now, Marcus began softly, still using Michelle's voice, though it sounded slightly different in person, less convincing. But please let me explain. Explain. Klaus's voice cracked. You lied to me for 7 months. Every day, every video call, every message. All of it was a lie. Not all of it, Marcus said quickly. My feelings were real. Everything I told you about wanting connection, about being lonely, about wanting someone who saw me for who I really am, that was all true. Who you really are. Klaus laughed bitterly. I don't even know who you are. Michelle Rodriguez doesn't exist. Marcus flinched. Michelle does exist. She's who I am inside. I'm transgender, Klaus. I've known since I was a child, but in Jamaica it's not safe to live openly. The discrimination, the violence, it's real. So I present as male at work, in public, but online. I could be myself. I could be Michelle. Klaus shook his head, trying to process the words. You catfished me. You showed me photos that weren't you, made me believe in something that wasn't real. The photos were me, Marcus insisted. With makeup, with styling, with the right angles. That's what I look like when I can be myself fully. I didn't use someone else's pictures, Klaus. That was always me. You should have told me, Klaus said, his voice rising. Before I flew halfway across the world. Before I took time off work. Before I spent 7 months falling for someone who doesn't exist. I was afraid, Marcus said, tears forming in his eyes, smudging the carefully applied mascara. Every time I've told someone the truth, they disappeared, blocked me, insulted me, sometimes threatened me. I thought if you got to know me first, if you fell for who I am as a person, maybe you could accept the rest. Accept the rest? Klaus felt anger replacing shock. I'm not gay. I'm not attracted to men. You knew that. You built this entire relationship on a lie. I'm not a man, Marcus said firmly. I'm a woman, Klaus. I just happen to have been born in the wrong body. That doesn't change our connection, what we shared. Everything changes, Klaus said. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through their conversation history, the messages that had made him feel hopeful, valued, loved. All of this was manipulation. You manipulated me. I didn't manipulate you. I loved you. I still do. Marcus took a step closer. Please, just give me a chance to show you that the person you fell for is still here. I'm still the same Michelle who listened to you talk about your divorce, who made you laugh, who understood your loneliness. Klaus backed away. I need to leave. I need to think. Where are you going? Marcus asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Back to my hotel. Back to Germany. I don't know. Klaus turned to walk away. Marcus grabbed his arm. Klaus, please. Don't throw away 7 months because of this. We can work through it. Klaus jerked his arm free. Don't touch me. The words came out harsher than he intended, but he couldn't control himself. The humiliation was overwhelming. He had told Tobias about Michelle, had shown her photos to colleagues, had booked this trip with such hope. Now he would have to go back and admit he had been fooled, deceived by someone he had trusted completely. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "I'm so sorry, but please don't leave Jamaica yet. Give me one day to make this right." "There's nothing to make right," Klaus said. "You destroyed everything." He walked away quickly, ignoring Marcus calling after him. He flagged down a taxi on the street, climbed in without looking back. The driver asked where to, and Klaus gave the name of his hotel. As they pulled away, he could see Marcus standing in the hotel garden, shoulders slumped, crying. Klaus stared out the window, seeing nothing. His mind raced through the past 7 months, re-examining every conversation, every video call, every declaration of affection. How had he not seen it? Were there signs he missed? He felt stupid, gullible, used. 50 years old and still making foolish decisions, still trusting the wrong people. Back at the Courtley, Klaus went straight to his room, locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed. He pulled up flight booking websites, searching for the earliest connection back to Germany. But the humiliation burned deeper with each passing minute. He imagined telling Tobias, facing his colleagues, admitting that the woman he had flown across the world to meet was actually a man in makeup. His phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Marcus. "Klaus, please answer. I never meant to hurt you. Can we just talk? Please don't leave without giving me a chance to explain properly." Klaus ignored them all, but he couldn't ignore the rage building inside him, consuming the shock, replacing it with something darker, something dangerous. Klaus spent the rest of that day locked in his hotel room, alternating between rage and disbelief. He couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't do anything except replay the morning's revelation over and over. The messages from Marcus continued through the afternoon, each one more desperate than the last. By evening, Klaus had received 43 texts and 11 missed calls. At 7 o'clock, Klaus finally opened one of the messages. It was longer than the others. "Klaus, I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. But please understand that I never wanted to deceive you in a cruel way. I'm a transgender woman living in a country where being myself openly could get me killed. The violence against LGBTQ people here is real. I've been beaten twice. Once so badly I was hospitalized. Online was the only place I could truly be Michelle, truly be myself. When we connected, when you made me feel valued and seen, I couldn't bear to lose that. I kept thinking I would tell you that the right moment would come, but I was terrified of losing you. I was wrong to wait so long. I know that now, but my feelings for you were never fake. Please, give me a chance to explain in person. I finish work at 9 tonight. Can we meet somewhere neutral and just talk? I promise I'll answer any question honestly." Klaus read the message 3 times. Part of him, a small part buried beneath the anger, felt a flicker of sympathy. Jamaica's reputation regarding LGBTQ rights was something he vaguely knew about, violence and discrimination that seemed medieval by European standards. But the larger part of him, the wounded ego, the humiliated man who had flown across the world based on a lie, wanted confrontation, wanted answers, wanted Marcus to feel even a fraction of the shame he was experiencing. He typed back, "Where?" The response came immediately. "There's a quiet bar called The Deck on Knutsford Boulevard. Not crowded, we can talk privately. 9:30? Klaus agreed. He showered, changed clothes, tried to calm himself. The anger hadn't diminished, but it had transformed into something colder, more controlled. He wanted to look Marcus in the eye and demand answers. He wanted to understand how someone could do this, could build an entire relationship on deception. The Deck was exactly as Marcus described. A small establishment with outdoor seating, dim lighting, and a clientele that seemed more interested in their drinks than other patrons. Klaus arrived first, ordered a red stripe beer he didn't really want, and sat at a corner table. At 9:35, Marcus arrived. He had changed out of his work uniform and was now dressed in jeans and a simple t-shirt, the wig and heavy makeup removed. Without the feminine styling, Marcus looked even more masculine, which somehow made the deception feel worse to Klaus. This was who he had really been talking to all those months, not the carefully curated Michelle from the photos and video calls. Marcus sat down cautiously. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "I want answers," Klaus said flatly. "Real answers, not more lies." Marcus nodded. "Ask me anything." "How much of it was real?" Klaus leaned forward. "The conversations, the connection. Was any of it genuine, or was I just a game to you?" "All of it was real," Marcus said firmly. "Every conversation, every moment of understanding, every time I made you laugh or you made me feel valued, that was genuine." "I wasn't playing a character, Klaus. Michelle isn't a separate person. She's me. The only deception was physical, the only deception." Klaus's voice rose slightly. "That's not a small thing, Marcus. Physical attraction, it matters. I'm attracted to women. Biological women. You knew that. And I am a woman," Marcus insisted. "Not biologically, not yet anyway, but in every way that matters to me. My brain, my soul, my identity, all woman." "That's not how it works," Klaus said. "You can't just decide biology doesn't matter." "Why can't I?" Marcus challenged. "You fell for who I am as a person. My thoughts, my personality, my values. Isn't that what matters in a relationship? Why does anatomy define everything?" "Because I'm not gay," Klaus said through gritted teeth. "Because I'm not attracted to men, and you're a man, no matter what you believe about yourself." Marcus flinched as if physically struck. "I see. So all those months, all those conversations about loneliness and wanting to be seen for who we really are, that only applied when you thought I looked a certain way." "Don't turn this around on me," Klaus snapped. "You lied. For 7 months you lied every single day." "I omitted information," Marcus corrected. "I never lied about my feelings, my personality, my hopes. I just didn't tell you about my body because I was afraid of exactly this reaction." "You were afraid?" Klaus laughed bitterly. "I flew here, Marcus. I took vacation time, spent money I've been saving, told everyone at work about the wonderful woman I was meeting. Do you know how humiliated I feel? Do you have any idea what it's like to realize you've been made a fool?" "You weren't made a fool," Marcus said quietly. "You connected with someone who genuinely cared about you." "Stop saying that," Klaus demanded. "Stop acting like your feelings make this okay. You manipulated me, made me believe in something that wasn't real." "What wasn't real?" Marcus's voice rose now, frustration breaking through. "The understanding we had, the way we talked for hours, the fact that for the first time in years both of us felt less alone. That was all real, Klaus." "Not to me," Klaus said coldly. "To me, all of it is tainted now. Every memory, every moment, all of it is poisoned by your lies." They sat in heavy silence. Around them, the bar continued its quiet evening rhythm, oblivious to the confrontation at the corner table. Finally, Marcus spoke again, his voice small, defeated. "What do you want from me, Klaus? An apology? I've given you that. An explanation? I've tried. What will make this right?" "Nothing," Klaus said. "Nothing will make this right. You destroyed something before it even had a chance to be real." "Then why did you agree to meet me tonight?" Marcus asked. "If there's no possibility of understanding, why come?" Klaus didn't have an answer. Or rather, he didn't want to admit the answer. He had come because the anger needed an outlet, because sitting alone in his hotel room felt unbearable, because some dark part of him wanted Marcus to suffer. They left the bar separately. Marcus went first, disappearing into the Kingston night. Klaus sat alone for another 20 minutes, ordering a second beer he barely touched. The bartender kept glancing at him, perhaps sensing the tension radiating from the solitary German tourist. Finally, Klaus paid and walked out into the humid darkness. The streets of New Kingston felt different at night, more threatening somehow. Groups of young men stood on corners, music blared from passing cars. The energy was unpredictable. Klaus walked quickly back toward his hotel, his mind churning. The confrontation with Marcus had resolved nothing. If anything, it had made everything worse. The justifications, the insistence that feelings mattered more than truth, the refusal to acknowledge the depth of the deception, all of it fed Klaus's rage. Back in his room, Klaus tried to sleep but couldn't. He lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of Kingston outside his window. His phone buzzed around midnight. Another message from Marcus. "I know you're still angry, but please don't leave Jamaica thinking I'm a monster. I made a mistake, but I'm not a bad person. I just wanted love like everyone else." Klaus stared at the message. The audacity of it struck him. Even now, Marcus was making himself the victim, asking for sympathy, for understanding. What about Klaus's pain? What about his humiliation? What about the fact that he had been manipulated for 7 months by someone who knew exactly what they were doing? He typed back before he could stop himself. "You want me to feel sorry for you. You destroyed my trust, wasted my time, made me look like a fool, and you want sympathy?" Marcus's response came quickly. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted a chance at happiness." "At my expense," Klaus wrote. "You used me. You knew what I wanted, what I was looking for, and you pretended to be that person. That's not love, that's manipulation." The conversation continued back and forth, escalating. Marcus defending his choices, Klaus attacking them. The exchange grew more heated, more personal. Klaus said things he would later regret, cruel words about Marcus's identity, his appearance, his deception. Marcus fought back, called Klaus closed-minded, transphobic, someone who cared more about appearances than substance. At 2 in the morning, Marcus sent a final message. "You know what? I was wrong about you. I thought you were different, that you were someone who could see beyond the surface. But you're just like everyone else, shallow, hateful, and so desperate to feel superior that you can't even consider that maybe, just maybe, I'm a human being deserving of respect." Klaus threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. He sat on the edge of the bed, breathing hard, hands shaking. The anger had consumed him completely now, burning away everything else. He wanted to hurt Marcus the way he had been hurt, wanted him to feel the same crushing humiliation, the same devastating betrayal. The next morning arrived gray and overcast, unusual for Kingston. Klaus woke after maybe 2 hours of fitful sleep. His phone screen was cracked from hitting the wall, but it still worked. No new messages from Marcus. Good. He never wanted to hear from him again. Klaus tried to book a flight home, but the earliest available departure wasn't until the following evening. Another full day trapped in this place, another day carrying this rage. He couldn't stay in the hotel room, couldn't sit still. He needed to move, to do something. He spent the day walking aimlessly through Kingston, barely seeing anything. The beautiful beaches, the vibrant culture, the friendly locals, none of it registered. All he could think about was Marcus's face in the hotel lobby, the moment of recognition, the shattering of everything he had believed. Around 4 in the afternoon, Klaus found himself near the Royal Palm Hotel again. He didn't plan to go there, his feet just carried him. He stood across the street watching the entrance. Part of him wanted another confrontation, wanted to go in and expose Marcus to his employers, to everyone. But what would that accomplish? More drama, more attention, more humiliation for everyone involved. His phone rang, an unknown local number. Klaus almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Hello?" "Klaus, it's me." Marcus's voice trembling. "Please don't hang up. What do you want?" "I want to apologize, really apologize, not just for the deception, but for last night. The things I said, they were cruel. You had every right to be angry and I attacked you for it. That wasn't fair." Klaus said nothing, waiting. "I've been thinking all day," Marcus continued, "about what you said, about trust and manipulation. You're right. I did manipulate you. I knew what you wanted and I presented myself as that person because I was desperate not to be alone. That was wrong. I should have been honest from the beginning, even if it meant rejection." "Why are you telling me this now?" Klaus asked. "Because I realized something. The person I became online, Michelle, She was brave in some ways, but cowardly in the most important one. She was afraid to be seen fully, to be vulnerable about everything, not just emotions but identity. And in protecting myself, I hurt you. I'm sorry, Klaus. I'm truly, deeply sorry. Klaus felt something crack inside him, not rage this time, but something sadder, heavier. It doesn't change anything. I know, Marcus said softly, but I needed you to know that I understand now. What I did was wrong, regardless of my intentions. You deserved honesty, and I didn't give you that. Klaus stood at the airport departure gate, his cracked phone screen reflecting the fluorescent lights. 24 hours had passed since Marcus's final apology. They hadn't spoken again after that call, and Klaus was grateful for the silence. He needed time to process everything, to understand what had happened and what it meant. The flight home felt longer than the journey there, though the duration was the same. Klaus sat in his window seat, watching the Caribbean disappear below, then nothing but ocean for hours. He thought about the past 7 months, about the conversations with Michelle that had made him feel less alone. Were those moments real even if the person wasn't exactly who he thought? He didn't have an answer. Tobias picked him up from Stuttgart Airport. One look at Klaus's face told him everything. It didn't work out. Klaus shook his head. Want to talk about it? Not yet. They drove in silence. Back at his apartment, Klaus unpacked mechanically. The gold necklace sat in its box, unworn, a reminder of naive hopes. He put it in a drawer, unable to throw it away but unable to look at it either. Over the following days, Klaus told people the trip hadn't worked out, that the connection hadn't translated to real life. He didn't mention Marcus or Michelle or the deception. The humiliation was too deep, too raw. Work provided structure, but no comfort. Klaus went through the motions, quality control reports, meetings, the routine of his life before Jamaica. But something had shifted. He found himself thinking not just about the betrayal, but about Marcus's words during their final call. The fear of rejection, the desperation to be seen, the impossible choice between honesty and connection. 3 weeks after returning, Klaus received an email. No subject line, sender Marcus Wellington. He almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity stopped him. The message was brief. Klaus, I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or to justify what I did. I'm writing because I thought you should know that I quit my job at the Royal Palm. After our encounter, several co-workers witnessed my distress and questions were asked. Rather than face more scrutiny, I resigned. I've decided to leave Jamaica, to move somewhere I can live as myself without fear. Your visit, as painful as it was, showed me that hiding was destroying me. I was becoming someone who hurt others to protect myself, and that's not who I want to be. I don't expect you to care about my future, but I wanted you to know that your anger, as justified as it was, also held truth. I was a coward, and I hurt you because of my cowardice. I hope you find what you're looking for, Klaus. I hope you find someone who gives you the honesty and respect I failed to provide. Michelle Marcus. Klaus read the email twice, then closed it without responding. What could he say? Good luck seemed inadequate. I forgive you felt impossible. He simply had no words. Months passed. Klaus tried online dating again, briefly, but found himself suspicious of every profile, every message, every photo. The trust Marcus had broken extended beyond their relationship, poisoning Klaus's ability to believe in digital connections. He deleted the apps after 3 weeks. His daughter Emma called in March, a rare occurrence. They talked awkwardly about her job, his work, the weather. Before hanging up, she asked casually if he was seeing anyone. Not right now, Klaus said. She was quiet for a moment, then said something unexpected. Dad, it's okay to be hurt. It's okay to need time. Whatever happened in Jamaica, you don't have to pretend it didn't affect you. Klaus felt his throat tighten. How did you know about Jamaica? I didn't, she said softly. But I know you, and I know something changed. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. That small gesture, his daughter's unexpected compassion, cracked something open in Klaus. He started seeing a therapist, something he had always dismissed as unnecessary. Dr. Schneider, a woman in her 60s, didn't judge when Klaus finally told her the full story. She listened, asked questions, helped him untangle the legitimate betrayal from the transphobia he hadn't realized he carried. "You were deceived," Dr. Schneider said during one session. "That's real, and your anger was justified. But ask yourself, what hurt more? The deception itself or the challenge to your sense of identity?" Klaus didn't have an immediate answer. By summer, Klaus had reached an uneasy peace. He understood now that what Marcus did was wrong, that honesty should have come earlier, that deception in relationships causes real harm. But he also understood that Marcus's desperation came from a real place, from living in a society where being authentic could mean death. Both things could be true simultaneously. Klaus never contacted Marcus again, and Marcus never tried to reach him. The gold necklace remained in its drawer, eventually buried under old tax documents and forgotten photographs. Klaus didn't date for over a year, focusing instead on rebuilding his relationship with Emma, on his work, on learning to be comfortable with solitude. 2 years later, Klaus saw a news article about Jamaica's ongoing struggles with LGBTQ rights. A transgender woman had been murdered in Kingston, beaten to death outside a nightclub. The victim's photo looked vaguely familiar, but Klaus couldn't place it. He felt a chill reading the story, wondering if Marcus had made it out safely, if he had found somewhere he could live authentically. Klaus would never know. Some stories don't have neat endings, don't resolve cleanly. He carried the experience with him, not as an open wound, but as a scar, a reminder of misplaced trust and shared humanity.